Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, our continuing series on the Steam Deck where I show you guys what it can emulate and how to set it up. And in the last video, the number one comment I was getting was that people wanted to see how it was handling Dreamcast and how to get that set up. So that's what we're going to be doing today, because Dreamcast is an absolutely spectacular console. We want to see it running on the Steam Deck, because of course it can do things like this, run No Man's Sky, but we want to see it run retro games. Before we get too far involved, though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But getting something like Crazy Taxi to run natively on the Steam Deck via emulation is absolutely spectacular, and it's going to be running under the Flycast emulator. Now please keep in mind that the emulator is not finished and graphical glitches will occur. The first thing you absolutely need is the dc_boot.bin BIOS file. I can't show you where to get this, but it's really easy to Google it, and you can copy that over to any USB drive. Just remember, like I've explained in previous videos, you need to have that drive formatted a certain way. FAT32 will not work, so you need to format whatever media you're transferring to your Steam Deck in exFAT. I warn you guys every single time, do not format something before you know there's nothing else you need on it. I'm deleting a RetroPie image here, but just make sure before you hit format you know what you're doing, because I get one comment every video, somebody formatted something they weren't supposed to be formatting, and that runs you into some trouble. So just make sure before you do any of these tutorials you have that USB drive set up with an exFAT file system, or else it won't read on your deck. But now that we've gotten that taken care of, as usual, we'll see here that I am using GDI files, and they all have a track 1, 2, and 3, and those are going to be the same file name across different games. So you want to make sure all your games are folderized when you bring them over to your USB drive in preparation for the deck, or else you can overwrite things. Now technically this does support CHD as well. I have mixed results with those, so just get yourself a bigger micro SD card and just leave them as GDI. That is my opinion. And like all of these tutorials, it does depend on you having that USB drive, whatever you want, and a dock. I can't recommend the dock enough. I'll leave a link to the description below for this dock. I don't make any money off that link, but it is definitely essential for almost all of these tutorials. Definitely pick one up. You will love it, especially for TV gameplay. But now that we have all of the files we need onto whatever removable USB device we want, you're going to see here as I drag this window over, we have all of the files I just showed you on my Windows PC, and we have that dc_boot.bin. That is the BIOS file. Now technically, you can use the HLE BIOS, but I highly recommend using a dump of an actual Dreamcast BIOS. And if we go over here into the emulation folder, wherever you set that up for EmuDeck, you're going to see that BIOS folder. Now I have seen and worked with this in two different ways, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. Some people will say that you just put the Dreamcast BIOS in the root BIOS directory. Other people say you need to put it in a folder called DC. One of them works, so we're going to do both because you can't break it doing that way. We'll just copy dc_boot.bin to the root directory of BIOS, and then we're going to go ahead and make a new folder. You can use the virtual keyboard or a USB keyboard, and we'll name that folder DC, obviously an acronym for Dreamcast. And then once that folder is created, we can go ahead and pop the BIOS in there as well. Maybe something changed on updates with EmuDeck 2 and something pivoted. I've seen people say you have to have it in folders. I've seen people say you don't have to have it in a folder, but if you do it both ways, you're guaranteed one's going to work, and that's honestly what we're looking for to make sure this works when you try it. And remember, this is just an emulation tutorial for a Dreamcast. If you want to see a different video on the Sega NAOMI, leave me a comment down below, maybe I will make it. But if you go over to the ROMs folder wherever you installed EmuDeck and you scroll down, you're going to see a folder called Dreamcast. Don't worry about me, I scrolled past it because apparently I don't know the alphabet, but that is where we're going to be putting the games that we want in here. So all you need to do is open up that folder, and you'll see right now it's empty because I'm doing this from scratch on a new installation of EmuDeck 2 just for the video. You can copy over everything at once, you can copy it once at a time. Just make sure you keep everything in the folder still, because there's going to be identically named files in the folders of the games you're adding, and if you have all of the files in one spot, you're going to overwrite a bunch of stuff. So just remember, always leave it in a folder. You can drag and drop, you can copy and paste, whatever is happy for you, works for me, but just go ahead and move the games you want in folders in that GDI format, into the Dreamcast folder and you will be perfectly fine. So drag over whatever games you want to play on Dreamcast and go ahead and open EmuDeck shortcut again, and we're going to go to the Steam ROM Manager. Remember to read that pop-up, it does change how your mouse clicks work, and this is where we're going to go ahead and do that parsing list again to get the games we've added into those folders showing up in our collections on the Steam OS, kind of the handheld mode and not the desktop mode. You will see that for some reason Sonic Adventure pops up as Sonic Adventure 2, and sometimes the Steam ROM Manager does ingest the game incorrectly. If you want me to show you how to fix that, maybe I'll do a separate video on just managing your ROMs. Leave me that comment down below as well. For this example, we will just leave it because you know what we're doing. And when you're done adding all your games and doing the Steam ROM Manager, just go ahead and click back to the Steam OS on handheld mode, and you'll see all the games we've selected are just right here, outside of Sonic Adventure 2, doing that weird thing. Now, taking a look at the gameplay side, I am highly impressed with what this is doing on Steam Deck. Now remember, Dreamcast emulation is not perfect. It doesn't matter if you're on a Steam Deck, it doesn't matter if you're on a Windows PC, or any other platform you're using. There will still sometimes be hitching, and there will still sometimes be graphical glitches. That is just the area in which Dreamcast emulation is still improving. It is not a strike against emulation at all or the people making it, it's just not 100% complete. So if you're expecting a perfect one-to-one representation of original Dreamcast hardware on the Steam Deck, you are not going to get that, but you're not going to get that on a powerful Windows machine either. It's just where we're at. But I will say, having played Virtua Fighter 3 Team Battle a ton, this looks and sounds and plays exactly how I would expect. And we do get more fun options, of course, too, because we're on emulation here. We have all sorts of different internal resolution toggles. I'm leaving it at 960 by 720. We have all of these different things we can articulate. Honestly, I basically leave everything as is because that's the default. It seems to be working the best. But there are some really fun options as well. Threaded rendering will be on by default. We'll leave it on. Don't touch it. It just works better that way. Trust me on this one. All the frame skip things, pretty much all the games are running at full speed, so you don't need to worry about it. But emulation hacks, the widescreen hack is one that is really fun to play with. Now, results may vary depending on the game you're using, but when I force 16:9 in Virtua Fighter 3 here, you get a tiny bit of polygonal culling at the edges, but for the most part, it just works and it looks absolutely spectacular. I love it, it's great, and I highly recommend you do check it out. Those black bars there are just part of forcing that widescreen. Now in other games like Sonic Adventure, depending on what you're seeing, you'll see things like this. It was just designed for 4:3, so it's never going to run in 16:9 without visual. They're not glitches, just aberrations, because the designers never meant for all of this to be on screen at once. But I will say Sonic Adventure runs as well as it ever has, which is to say it kind of ran janky on Dreamcast, and it runs a little janky here too. But go ahead and listen to the music for 45 seconds because that emulation is spectacular, and I'll come back and talk more about the performance of Dreamcast on Steam Deck. But enjoy this music, guys. Sounds absolutely spectacular and sounds like a Dreamcast should, but you'll see now that we moved over to widescreen hack on Sonic Adventure, when you're actually in levels, for the most part, I don't see any culling at the edges of the screen whatsoever, and I think it's an absolutely spectacular look for Sonic Adventure. I just wish the game ran better, but that's not a knock at the Steam Deck or the emulation. It's just one of those things. Sonic Adventure played a lot better when it came out than it does in the modern day. I still absolutely love the game, and playing it on the go on the Steam Deck is a spectacular way to experience it. But if you've never played this game on original hardware back in the day, you might think that some of the jankiness is down to emulation. The jankiness is just down to Sega making janky games back in the day. It's kind of what they did. But in this game, running in 16:9, everything looks spectacular. The internal resolution is great, everything is sharp, and this is just playing like Sonic Adventure should. It's a little glitchy, but that's just down to how the game was released. Let's move over to another Dreamcast classic that I think is running perfectly, and that's going to be Crazy Taxi. I've changed the music underneath this because even with me talking over it, sometimes it flags for copyright. but this just feels right. It takes a little bit of getting used to the analog stick on the Steam Deck, as it does have different tension than the Dreamcast analog stick, and I've played with that almost consistently for the last 20 some odd years, but it takes like a minute or two, but you'll get used to it. But I will say, in operation, this just plays like Crazy Taxi should. It is perfect. Playing this on the go is incredible. The Steam Deck screen is great. It's great when it's docked and on your television. It just 100% works. That's the highest compliment I can give to Crazy Taxi. I wouldn't know this wasn't running on a real Dreamcast, except it looks better because of that internal resolution, and I'm playing it on a Steam Deck. Now, not every game is going to work perfectly, and that is just the status of the emulation. Something like Jet Grind Radio here, a game I know a lot of people would ask me to test if I hadn't, does show some glitches in polygon and texture loading. You see a little bit of it here in the intro screen, but you'll notice right now you start seeing these polygons almost stretching to infinity. It's not a Steam Deck issue, it's just Flycast. I tested this on my desktop with a standalone, it does it. I tested it on my desktop with RetroArch, it does it. I tested it here, does the exact same thing. And as these emulators update, I'm sure these are things the developers are going to want to fix, but right now, it's a little glitchy. Now, one game that I found absolutely no issues with whatsoever is Resident Evil Code Veronica. From the cutscenes to the gameplay to the audio, this again, just like Crazy Taxi, plays exactly like I would expect it to play. And it's spectacular. If you've never played Code Veronica, go ahead and do it. I swear that Capcom's never going to give us a remake of it like they've done with the rest of the original Resident Evil games, and I really wish they did. But all of the real-time lighting in engine, everything that you would expect to be here is here, and it's playing like I remember. And again, this is another absolutely spectacular game to play on your couch with the Steam Deck in your hand, dock it on your television, or take it on the go, get on a plane, and play some Resident Evil. And that's kind of what I'm finding with the Dreamcast. The Steam Deck handles it as good as any mid-tier PC would, and any of the emulation glitches that are apparent on a desktop seem to be doing the exact same thing on the Steam Deck. But the Steam Deck is an awesome way to play Dreamcast, and if you follow this tutorial, it's going to work for you. All you need to do is move the BIOS into the correct position and make sure the BIOS has the right name, and make sure you move your games over in their own individual folders. You can try for CHD, that's fine. I just recommend you get a bigger card and go ahead and use GDI, and once you're done, you can play No Man's Sky. I just love this little starburst here. It's a good thing to talk over. But if you have any questions or run into any issues, leave me a comment down below and I'm happy to help you guys out. But start playing around with the Dreamcast on Steam Deck today, because it's a ton of fun. Leave me a comment what tutorial you want to see next, and I'll talk to you guys later. See you next time. Bye bye.